Hi everyone, namaste. Welcome. I'm so glad that you are watching this because what we are about to discuss today is something that affect every students, every parent and every teacher. And honestly, not enough people are talk about this. My name is Wasimuddin. I lead the Serene 30 program at Mehitra, where I teach yoga and pranayama. Alongside, I work in the space of research and technology innovations, trying to explore how modern tools and evidence-based practices can come together to make mental wellness more accessible and impactful to everyone. I'm a part of an organization called Mihtra, Mental Health Innovations and Therapeutic Research, a company that works across different age groups and walks for life. From working professional finding balance to students discovers how their minds work. Because we believe one thing deeply, a healthy mind, it's not a luxury, it is a foundation. Everything a young person who wants to achieve academically, personally, and socially, it all starts within, and Mihitra exists to make sure students have the inner foundation. And within Mihitra, there is a program that is doing something truly special. It's called Igniting Minds. This program it's built specifically for students in class 6 to 12. What actually happens when a young person understands how their own minds work? What are the shift? What becomes possible? Igniting Minds exist to the answer exactly that. In these sessions, we are going to deep into some of the most common and most important questions and students' well-being and learning. And now it is my privilege to introduce our guest speaker for today. We have with us Ms. Raghavi Reddy, who is a psychologist, counselor, author, and a mental health trainer. She has extensive experience in working with students understanding cognitive patterns and design impactful intervention that supports both learning and emotion well-being. We are truly lucky to have her here. Ms. Raghavi Reddy, this floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Vaseem. It's truly pleasure to be part of this webinar. And thank you so much for the kind and very generous words. I really appreciate it, Vaseem. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. And I'm really looking
Yes,
forward for the enriching, productive, and fruitful session and a beautiful webinar. Thank
yes,
you.
for sure. Even I am also very excited for this conversation because this is actually, it's a great opportunity to learn something together about the young mind and youth.
That's true.
So let's jump to the question. Then I have a bunch of questions for you today in this webinar. So let's start with the first question. So my first question is, many parents tells us their children struggle to stay focused on studies for even in a short times. But what really happens at brain level here?
That's a great question, Vaseem. Good start of the day. So let me start with something very honest, Vaseem. Before we talk about children, let's talk about ourselves. Okay?
Yeah,
Hope you are ready.
yeah.
Have you ever sat in a meeting where someone is just reading slides, same tone, no engagement, and suddenly you realize, I don't remember the last 5 minutes? This is exactly what is happening with children. So, the first myth I want to break is children are not lazy. It is not laziness at all. ये बहुत important है समझने के लिए. The part of the brain responsible for focus, planning, and control, that is called the prefrontal cortex, is still developing in children. I mean, that is the age where it starts developing. So it fully matures only around the age of 25. So when we expect a 13-year-old to sit for 1 hour continuously and focus, we are expecting an adult level brain to perform from a developing brain. And there's one another layer too. The brain naturally shifts into what we call as default mode. अपने आप मतलब लोगों को जब बच्चे they feel bored or it is repetitive, ये default mode on हो जाती है when it feels bored, जैसे मैंने बताया था, and they feel when disconnected also. So that's the mind wandering mode, as everybody are aware of it, and that is automatic. It's just like a switch. तुरंत ऐसे हो जाता है when it is a repetitive thing or it's something not interesting to them. So when a child is sitting with a textbook and not focusing, It's not that they are choosing distraction. The brain is
Hmm.
shifting because it is not engaged. So they don't feel interesting to focus, or they don't feel like giving time on that context of the textbook or whatever they are reading. So now here is what where we need to shift our approaches. Instead of increasing sitting time, we need to increase engagement and structure. Like,
Hmm. Got
what
it.
can parents realistically do? What generally do? They say, finish this work, do that work, finish that chapter. Instead of that, start with shorter focus cycles, like 10 to 15 minutes of genuine focus. Because genuine focus is far more powerful than focusing for 1 hour. I mean, it just become a burden on them, a pressure on them. So give them small cycles, short period of time to focus at least for 15 minutes. Then comes, I can say, the second tip as reduce the distractions.
Hmm.
Even one notification breaks the brain's rhythm. I hope you all
I agree. I 100% agree this. In
exactly.
the time of smartphones and a lot of technology and a lot of device surrounding by us, बहुत ज्यादा difficult हो जाता है, then one pop-up sound and you completely distract.
Exactly. And it doesn't take just 10 seconds to come back, right? To recover that, it takes time. It can take several minutes also to come back into focus stage again. And then the thirdly, I want to say is that give one clear task at a time. Rather than saying multiple things on one go, just ask them to finish one thing. It's not finishing one thing. I mean, you should not order them, not finish everything, just saying, "Ki finish everything." Just give them some time and give them a clear task. What portion of that work has to be done? Because when you say finish everything, that overwhelms the brain. And most importantly, change your language. I request all the parents and the teachers that they should change the language. The way they project the things, the way they make the students understand the things is really important. So instead of saying sit properly and focus, let's say, let's try 10 minutes of full focus together, because that shows that you are with them. So because confidence in focus builds through success, not pressure. I hope you agree with
Hmm.
this, Vasim.
Yeah, that is beautiful, and I think I completely agree with this. मैं ये बहुत छोटी छोटी चीजें हैं लाइफ की, जिनको हम ज्यादा नोटिस नहीं करते हैं, बट इट्स इम्पैक्ट इन अ वेरी बैड वे टू आवर माइंड्स. Okay. Okay, let's go for the second question. We often hear that children's lost interest very quickly these days. Why does this happen, especially in the age of 11 to 17 age groups? So basically, I think we all have this bad problem to, lose the interest in very, very quickly. But I'm talking about in a very specific age group of 11 to 17, because this is also a very distractive mind. And people are, and childrens are very struggle to, lose interest in very quick way in an age of 11 to 17. So what do you think about this?
Great. This is one of the most common concerns of the parents nowadays. Like they say, my child used to enjoy things. Now nothing interests them. So whatever they used to like before, nowadays they are not liking it. That is what they meant to say. So, but let me reframe that. Interest has not disappeared. It has just shifted. It takes time for everything. So between the age group of 11 to 17, the brain undergoes a major change in its dopamine system. So dopamine is what drives motivation and excitement, as everybody knew that. Earlier, simple things felt exciting. So the brain starts seeking novelty, challenge, and stimulation. That's why you'll notice something very interesting. They spend more time on that. So a child who says studies are boring can sit for 2 hours playing a game or watching fast-paced content also. So the issue is not the child has no interest. The issue is the brain now needs higher engagement to feel interested. So if you think of it like moving from slow TV or to the fast OTT content now. So once the brain gets used to speed and stimulation, slow content automatically feels dull. That's what happens now. We don't look for the old series. nowadays. I mean, whichever is dragging, we don't see that. We just make it fast forward and just finish that content because we are in that phase. So even in classrooms, I have seen this shift clearly. The moment a teacher connects the topic in real life and asks a question or introduces a challenge, suddenly the same disinterested child becomes alert. That really what happens if you come up with a topic and introduce it as known to unknown rather than unknown to known. If you make it that known to the unknown, they feel interested. And when you connect with the reality, the practical examples, whatever happens in the house or whatever happens in the school or whatever they face in their daily life or that they come across in the society. So that's what generally happens in their life. Definitely people get interest. I mean, they feel like, yes, I am aware of this. I know about this. So that's how they feel it's their personal thing. I mean, yes, I'm part of this. So I can really contribute to that. So that small shift is really required. So what can we do for that? First, connect learning to real life. Children engage when they see meaning. That is how they get connected, right? Unless there is a meaning, and if I say something about any other country or something which is related to the topic, they definitely they don't get engaged. That doesn't make any sense. Also, secondly, give choice. Definitely, that is really important because even small choices increase ownership. If students want to say something about the topic, and if you don't give them that platform or the choice to deliver that, and if you keep on suppressing them, then that gets stuck in their mind so that they feel like saying it in future also. So you always give them a choice. So which topic do you want to start with? What are you interested in? Something like that. And the next I want to add is you need to give them challenges. The brain loves sense of achievement. So instead of saying complete this, complete that, choose that, rather than that, you just have to shift it to let's see if you can finish this in 15 minutes. So the shift is very simple but very powerful and it gives a great impact on that. So don't ask or never ask, why are you not interested? Rather than that, you just ask them, what will make this interesting for your brain? This definitely make a change. You just have to try it. That's it.
Interesting. So I think it's more like the children think. I think it's more important how the parents and parenting personalities have to be changed in the
Right.
perspective to authoritative to shift in a very supportive parenting system.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nice, interesting. So for this question, I develop one more question. So I'm very curious for the development of brain perspective. So for example, from a brain development perspective, what are the most important changes happening in the student during around the class like 6 to 12? What are the most important changings happen at that time?
Right. Got it. So 6 to 12, this phase is actually one of the most important phases of brain development. Let me explain this in a very simple way. The brain is like a garden. During this age, two things happen simultaneously. I mean, without your knowledge also. I mean, very consciously it happens. One is that connections that are not used or removed. Okay. And the second thing is that connections that are used repeatedly and that become very strong also. So whatever a child is repeatedly doing during this phase becomes deeply wired into the brain. Because whatever we do, keep on doing the things like it's our daily routine also. We get habituated with it, right? So without any instruction, without any input from anyone, we do it because that's our daily task. We are doing it repeatedly. So our brain, so that becomes we are deeply wired into that brain system. So if a child is repeated engaging in focused activities like thinking, reading, problem solving, those pathways strengthen. So if a child is repeatedly engaging in passive consumption, like it can be scrolling, it can be watching without thinking, again, those also make a very strong pathways. So same age group, but very different brain wiring, It depends on what you choose. And there's another important factor. The emotional part of the brain develops faster, much faster than the logical part. That's why this age group feels things. more intensely, but does not always process them logically. That's what I mean to say. So, what should be the parents' role? I mean, what should parents and teachers do in that? They just have to focus less on outcome and more on patterns. That's what I can say. Because rather than expecting the results, you just have to figure out their pattern, the way of style they follow, and build the routines that you can do as a parent, as a teacher. Everybody can do that. The brain thrives on predictability. So give them encouragement and active engagement. So give them discussion topics or debate competitions. Ask them for questions like they have to question and they have to come up with the explanation also, not just passive listening. So I would request all the children to develop the good habits at the very early stage because the repetition during this phase becomes their identity. When you learn small things at a very young age, that becomes your routine, you know. It's my personal experience. What I did was when my child was 5 years old, I used to make them to do their work, like just filling their water bottles or leaving their footwear at the rack, shoe rack, or taking out the tiffin box and keeping it in the kitchen. Something, these are the very small things. These are the very good habits where to make them independent also. And it should, like, they can do on their own. A very simple task. But when we give them the instructions initially for 4 5 days, and fifth day or sixth day, they do it automatically. And that's a very good habit. So they'll understand that that is their task and they are independent and that they have to do. They should not depend on anybody else to do that work. So that small change is really important. So this is not just an academic phase. This is the brain wiring phase. So take it in a positive way and try to implement this very small things in your life, day-to-day life, give you a good impact.
I think I am 110% agree on this because because I have a background in yoga and yoga traditions and all. So in yoga, most of the people, I think more than the 80% of the people in India or I think in the world, if you heard about the yoga word, the first things comes pop up in the mind, asana ka photo. कोई आसना
Right.
करता हुआ yoga is just mean for the asanas, but actually what is yoga? Asana is on the third perspective. So the Maharishi Patanjali, who given the perspective of yoga, the Ashtanga yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, before asanas, they providing 2 limbs, the yama and niyama. And
Right.
this is the concept of 5,000 years back. And still we are talking about this because we are not understanding. अभी तक भी हम वो समझ नहीं पा रहे हैं. सो यमन यमा में भी यही है कि किस तरीके से आपको हैबिट्स चेंज करनी है, छोटी छोटी चीजें चेंजेस करनी है. सो यस डेफिनेटली यार, इंटरेस्टिंग. या.
Good. That's nice. Yeah.
सो what do you think about how do the brain changes influence a child emotional behavior and decision making on a daily basis? Is this is affected by this practice?
So before you begin into the detailed version of it, let me describe a typical day of a teenager, okay?
For
So
sure.
morning generally what they do, I mean, they get irritated for small things, irrespective of what happened in the morning. Generally the teenager life starts like this. The morning they get irritated without without any big task or without any judgment or without any input, nothing. But they just get irritated in the morning hours. And at school, once they reach the school, I mean, they feel like everyone is judging them. Though it is not happening on the ground, but still they feel so. And in the afternoon, they react strongly to something very small which has happened. It should not have been like taken it very seriously, but still they do take it. And in the evening hours, they are completely fine, as if nothing has happened. So parents are very like they feel confused what is really happening in our student and in the children life. But this is actually very common, you know, very normal. So the emotional brain called the amygdala is highly active during adolescent age. That is why we could see so many shifts in them. That is why we come up with this mental health. You need to think positive, vagera, vagera, because this has started at the age of the teenage, then passed on to the adolescence. So the control center, the prefrontal cortex, is still developing. So what happens at that stage? The reactions comes first, thinking comes later, where it has to be in the vice versa. but the reaction comes first and the thinking comes later here. So it's like driving a car without a very strong accelerator but weak brakes. This is how it is. So even small triggers feel very big to them. मतलब छोटी छोटी चीजों में मतलब इतना गुस्सा आ जाता है and later on they realize it or not, they become very normal again. So a small comment from a friend, a slight delay, or a comparison, all of it can feel intense. They make it a scene, they become very serious, they feel that I am not, people are not giving me that attention, that I'm missed out from this. ऐसे कुछ कर. So, but the same child may calm down in 15, 20 minutes on his own, generally, without any without any help. So, how should adults respond? Is what is your question? I agree.
Yeah.
First, don't match their intensity. Never ever. So if the child is at 9 by 10, I mean, out of 10, if the ratio is 9 emotionally, you go to 9 by 10, no, right? The situation escalates. Obviously, if my emotion is at 9 by 10 and if you're starting with the same phase at 9 by 10, that doesn't make any sense. So both are quarreling. I mean, we have the same intensity at that moment. So rather than 10, 9 or 9, you need to start with 4 or 5. Then that will definitely give them some space. They'll calm down. Let them burst out, let them open out. That is very important. That is very important, right? At least they have to burst out, or at least they have to say everything, whatever is inside them. Once it is released, then they'll be very calm. But for that, you need to set up that tone. Start with 4 or 5, but don't start with 8 or 9 because you will be parallel to each other, right? Then that doesn't make any sense. And then what we do is, secondly, delay correction. Don't try to correct them at every point of time because you're not a judge. You're the parents or you're a teacher, you're a mentor to them. So guide them. And even if it's a friend, they can judge. I mean, it's not judgment, it's like supporting them or guiding them. So in that moment, logic will not work. Even आप ज्ञान देना चाहते हो, वो सुनने के लिए तैयार ही नहीं होते, obviously. If I carry that anger and if you come and say me to cool down, or you want to say some logic behind it, why will I listen to it? Because I'm in a state of anger. I will not listen to you, right? Definitely. So let's wait. Wait for the moment to settle, then talk. And the third is you need to model the regulation. Children don't learn emotional control from any of the devices, though they spend most of the time for the devices. They don't learn from it, they learn by observing the adults or the peer group. So if you stay calm, they slowly learn how to regulate. Like even as parents or mentor for small things, if you just get hyped, you take it in a very serious way and just you answer it in a very rude or harsh way, they don't come to you and they learn the same thing also. But if you are very calm, you understand the things, you give them some time, you give them that space, then they will observe these things. They'll try ki, acha, this is how we need to handle. This is how we need to listen. This is how we need to take time to understand what is really happening. Generally, in the breathing technique also, or in the meditation, or in the grounding techniques, or in any counseling sessions, we teach children to follow this stop pad. Stop. That is the beautiful technique. They just have to stop for a while and then they have to think about it, what is really going on. And then they have to observe the things and then the process starts. So that is how it has to be. So if you stay calm, they slowly learn how to regulate. So the goal is not to eliminate emotions, right? The goal is just to help the child how to handle them. That is important. When they come to or when they realize how to handle them, everything becomes very, very, very normal to them. Thank you.
I I think this is the great explanation of this question. क्योंकि मुझे भी लगता है कि ऑब्जर्वेशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इन अर्ली स्टेज ऑफ ब्रिंगिंग अपब्रिंगिंग। और आई थिंक हमारे टाइम पे तो या फिर थोड़ा और पहले एक डिफरेंट ही कल्चर था। वहां पे तो बातों से ज्यादा थोड़ा हाथ चलते थे। आई थिंक थोड़ा सा अब
Right, that's
चेंज आ
true.
रहा है, अब थोड़ा चेंज आ रहा है पेरेंटिंग में और चीजों में कि और आई थिंक ऑब्जर्व ऑब्जर्व इज अ बेस्ट टीचिंग मेथड। जब वो खुद
Right.
से कुछ भी सीखते हैं, वो खुद से कुछ भी करने का ट्राई कर रहे हैं, एंड डिफरेंट 50% रिस्पॉन्सिबल पेरेंट्स भी होते हैं कि वो किस तरीके से बिहेव कर रहे हैं। छोटी सी बात पे अगर कुछ होता है तो डोंट शाउट इट, बट ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड कि व्हाट हैपेंड, इट्स ओके। So yeah, nice. But on the parenting side, I have a one question like a common concern from the parent
Okay.
is that child start task that they don't complete them. You know, उन्होंने कुछ भी अपने बच्चों ने कुछ भी एक चीज स्टार्ट करी बट वो कंप्लीट नहीं कर पाते हैं। आई डोंट नो बिकॉज मे बी द डिस्ट्रैक्शंस और समथिंग, they are too enthusiastic about at that stage of time. So, what would be the underlying reason of this pattern? उसके उसके पीछे का एग्जैक्टली रीजन क्या है अगर हम साइंटिफिकली जाएं तो?
Very practical question, Vasim. This is something that frustrates most of the parents deeply. Deeply, they'll get frustrated on this. So they start everything but finish nothing. मतलब बच्चा कुछ तो स्टार्ट करता है बट दे डोंट एंड इट. मतलब स्टार्ट तो कर लिया लेकिन उसका एंड कुछ नहीं होता है. तो
And they can start something else.
exactly. That's true. So, but this pattern has a clear response, clear reasons. Like the brain releases dopamine, as I already mentioned. So, when starting something new, so the beginning feels exciting to them, so they do it on their own. But once the novelty fades and effort begins, the dopamine drops. The task starts feeling very heavy because no more excitement, no more interest in that. And then, secondly, continuation is a skill. It you can say it in most of the children now. Consistency and stability that has to be built matlab, from the engage. When there is no consistency and stability, there are so many deviations, many fluctuations. Matlab, something or the other pops in without any connection. So starting and finishing are not the same for them. So many children don't know how to sustain that effort they put in. And the third one is that very important, which is the fear. Some children stop because wherever they feel, what if I'm not good at this? They judge themselves. I mean, they keep doubting themselves. What if I'm not good at this thing?
Or what if my mother slapped me if I'm not doing correctly? It's connected to the previous question,
Yes,
to
yes,
the reaction of maybe this is also a most of the child's fear, that what if I
correct.
do wrong and my parents yell at me or maybe you know
That is
मारेंगे या फिर वो डराएंगे या फिर some kinds of these thoughts are, I think.
exactly because you're restricting yourself, right? Because when you think that, when you have that self doubt, you're restricting yourself. So that shield has to be removed. That has to be, I mean, I can say it has to be broken into pieces. It has to be broken into pieces. I once worked with a student who started, not just one student, I could say this in most of the students, who started many activities at a time. Simultaneously, they keep on targeting this, and all, but left all of them midway. And we explored deeper when we asked him, and he said, I stopped when I'm no longer the best. Because when you attend something, when you're part of something, there are other students or your friends who take part in the same thing, right? And you should not lower yourself. You should not feel that you are not the best or your friends are good when compared to you. You should not judge like that, or you should not demotivate yourself. Rather than that, you can just give it a try at least. Okay, giving it a try is the first step. And that is not laziness at all. That is just the fear of failure. So, what can we do in that phase is break tasks into smaller steps. Like we already discussed in Clubbuster Goal, that smart goals. We need to chunk them down. Like if it is a big problem, you need to make it into very small. And then whatever that can be done in a day or a week, that has to be done first. On the priority basis, you need to do it. So very smart moves, the smart way of reaching the target, or the way you split the things based on the priority, that really makes a sense. It gives you a vision also. So, and after that, once you achieve that, try to celebrate that progress, not just completion. The phase, the journey you passed through, you need to give respect or you need to value that moment or that time. So don't ever keep that perfection thing in your mind. Remove that perfection pressure. As a teacher, also they expect something from their students. As a parent, they expect from the students. There are expectations from others. So we need to reduce that. And at the same time, as a student or a child, whatever is possible by me, I need to figure it out. And you need to know, you need to have that clarity. I mean, what can I do in a day? What can I do in a week? What is my priority? This has to be very clear. So once this is set, you are in that continuation stage. You are maintaining that stability. So instead of finish that chapter, say let's complete 2 pages really makes a difference. It can be by anyone. Also talk to the child. Ask where do you feel like stopping. This is really important. Rather than saying just read this, complete this, do that. Instead of that, at times you need to ask, where do you feel like stopping? That question opens inside because the problem is rarely at the start. And rarely at the start, it's not, it's in the middle. So we need to figure this out. Where, where do we really get stuck? So at that point, when we address that then and there, the root cause of it, then it will solve every problem of the children. And indirectly, it solves the parents and the teachers' issues to with the children.
Hmm. So I think another frequent concern is memory also. So
Yeah.
do you think student studies, but they don't seem to be retain it? What could be the affecting this continuity in learning? What do you think about this?
This is one of the biggest gaps in our system, Vaseem. They could say this every now and then. Students are putting so much effort, but they don't get the results. They say, "Ki, I have done very good. I have done this work. I gave me 100%, but still, I'm not satisfied or I'm not getting that result." I mean, it's not. Uh, they are not justified with that, whatever the result they get, because they are aware. They are aware, right? Whatever the effort they have put in. Why does this happen? Because most of them use passive methods, just like reading again and again, or highlighting, or watching the content again and again. But memory does not work like a recording, right? It's just not a recording system. Your memory has to strengthen because the brain. So as the memory strengthens, the brain retrieves the information. Let me ask you something. Why do we remember movie songs so easily? Once
Because of the visuals.
we see the visuals, we keep on listening to the songs again and again. We recall them, though we are not with the song. Even when we are doing other tasks of the house, household works, or you're even with your friends, or you're traveling, you're walking, whatever it is, you try to recall that song. Yeah, morning I heard that song, so let me recollect that, at least the visuals of it. So, and you feel that song also. This is was taken in so and so place. This is where these were their emotions. These were the gestures. So that is what I'm trying to say. When something fascinates you, when you're interested in, you will definitely remember all those things. So not because we studied them, some principles applies in learning. Some same principles applies to learn. I mean, we can do the same thing in our learning system also. So what should students do is after studying, very clear. After studying, close the book and try to recall. And try to explain the concepts to someone. If nobody is available at home, if nobody has the time, just go to the mirror and try to explain to the self, thinking there is some ex person right in front of you. That really makes a sense because when you start projecting it out, when you deliver it out, you will know your mistake and you will be knowing where you are lagging. So that is really important. And then write without looking. Do the children do that? I don't know. Most of them do, and most few of them not. But this is the right way. So I'll say it again. After studying, close the book and try to recall. Explain the concept to someone. Write without looking. And revise after a gap. Just not every day. Give some gap. If you have read this chapter today, then try to revise it after a week or 4 5 days. So these are very simple things, but that really work. These are not uncomfortable methods, also, I feel. They are very
Yeah.
applicable to you. So shift the question from how long did you study to how did you study? That really makes a sense. That changes everything.
Hmm. हाँ, इस चीज से मुझे एक बात याद आई व्हेन आई वाज इन माय बैचलर्स आई यूज्ड टू डू a theater. I'm in a theater group of my college, and I am very interested in the theater activities and some filmmaking and other stuff.
Hmm.
So I remember one of our guru in theater, उन्होंने भी some kinds of exercise ही हमें provide कराई थी, which helps
Okay.
me a lot in an initial stage of my upbringing. जब मैं एक टीन से आ रहा था. Yeah, I'm audible.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these exercise, these kinds of like talk to the mirror or some, recall the words, and some exercise actually helps. I have a personal experience of this. So yes, I think this is the cool stuff. So I think this is a great conversation. But I have a last question for you. So finally, if a parent or a teacher wants to support child as a holistically, not just as a academically, but as a holistically or mentally or emotionally, what practical changes would you suggest being with?
Right. Very important question. Because when we say supporting a child holistically, it really means we are looking beyond marks, beyond performance, and understanding the child as a whole human being. So if I have to suggest where to begin, I would say the first and most powerful shift is moving from control to connection. Like many a times, parents and teachers focus on correcting behavior, study mode, don't use your phone, focus properly. These are the instructions we give them generally as a parent or as a teacher. But the child's brain, especially in this age group, responds much better to feeling understand rather than being instructed. Because they have to adopt to the things, they need to understand. If you keep on giving the instructions, they feel it as a pressure, obviously, because they don't know the meaning of it, right? Because nobody is explaining it, nobody is making them understand. So start by building a space where the child feels safe to express without fear of judgment. And the second thing I want to say is very important again. The aspect is creating the emotional awareness. Children today experience a lot internally. It can be a stress, the comparison, the confusion, but they don't always have the language to express it. They suppress inside them. Instead of asking only, did you study? We can start asking, like, how was your day? Or what felt difficult today? Very simple thing, as if you are concerned about them. These small changes help children become more aware of their own thoughts and emotions, which directly improves focus and also learning. Another practical change in bringing structure without pressure is, as I mentioned, the brain thrives on routine, but not rigid control. Simple things like fixed sleep time, short focused study blocks, and regular breaks can make a big difference. When the routine is consistent and if they are habituated to it, so the brain feels secure, and that naturally improves attention and also the continuity. We also need to address the digital connections and the distractions with awareness, not restriction alone. We cannot just say don't see this or don't scroll for long hours. Rather than that, explain the things in a very simple way to them. Completely cutting off devices is not a solution. It often creates a resistance in them. That's where the conflict begins. They try to hide the things. They don't accept the reality. So instead of that, you help the children. Helping children understand how screen time affects their focus and mood makes them more responsible, that becomes easy to understand the reality behind it. So co-creating the rules with them works better than imposing rules on them. You need to sit beside them to understand what they really need at that moment. Why are they looking into it? So if you get the clarity, why do they need the phone at that moment? What are they really expecting it? Are they looking for the self enjoyment, excitement, which is not available in his surroundings? Is that so? Or anything else he is looking for? That's where our the solution comes in. That's where our question is solved. And one more key area is modeling behavior. Children don't just listen to what we say, they observe how we live. If you keep on saying the things 10 times, it doesn't mean that they do the same thing, right? Whatever we do, whatever we give them as a projection, like how do we speak and the gesture we give it to them, the time we spend with them, this all matters. The behavior, the emotion we carry with them, they they get used to it. I mean, they get that confidence in them. They feel very secure. So that we need to give. If they see adults managing stress calmly, being consistent, and valuing learning, they naturally start reflecting the same patterns. मतलब आप जो चीजें नहीं कर रहे हो and if you ask somebody to do it, it doesn't make any sense and it doesn't give that impact also, right? If you don't feel like eating something and if you force somebody to eat that, you're not eating and you show some expressions, but still you ask somebody to eat it, eat it, eat it. Nobody will eat it, nobody will accept that. So along with them, you need to be standing with them. Like if you ask them to read, you also hold a book with them. Like you can read any of the novel, any of the storybooks, or you can just read their textbooks also. This is how you are just supporting them, you are being with them. That is really required. And finally, I would say focus on their effort, not just their outcome. Don't give them the target that you have to achieve this. No, not like that. Rather, you just try to build their confidence level, saying, "Hey, you need to put in more effort, better." Instead of learning for 5 minutes, can you spend for 10 minutes today as this problem is not solved yesterday and you still have doubts in that, you're making mistakes in this. Can I help you in that? We'll sit for some time. This is how you need to start your conversation with them. So when we appreciate the process, I saw you trying, or you are best at this. I mean, you did your best this time. You have done well. You stayed consistent today, something like that. We are actually strengthening the brain's motivation system, you know. This builds long-term confidence and resilience. That is how they move forward. If you keep restricting them, if you uh, build any boundary in their circumstances, then they doesn't step out, right? If you don't give them the chance to explore much, then they don't. So first try to build their confidence levels. That's how we need to help them out. And so in simple terms, the holistic support starts with strong emotional connection. It can be with anyone and everyone. You need to be very gentle, very consistent in structure. And also the awareness of habits, the daily routines, and their patience levels, because all this really matter in their life. Because when a child feels supported internally, they learn automatically. That becomes very smooth externally also, and that we could see. I think these are the very small changes. It can be incorporated by any family member of the house. It can be a sibling, it can be a teacher, it can be a parent, or it can be anyone, any well wisher. Everybody can implement that. So small changes, small tasks, or small these type of things that are daily routines will give a great impact in their life. That's what I feel.
Interesting. Nice, actually. Thank you so much for your time. This has been such a rich, beautiful, and eye-opening conversation for me. I hope जो बाहर इसको देखेंगे, whether is a teacher, parents, or a student, I hope it's help उनकी लाइफ में, और this conversation it helps to जो भी उनकी लाइफ में आगे हो और कैसे वो चीजें चेंज कर सकते हैं. Thank you so much once again, Raghavi ma'am. Thank you.
My pleasure to be part of it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.